Tonight, the world is on edge, gripped by a sense of uncertainty and dread that stretches far beyond the Middle East. In cities across the globe, people gather in public squares and huddle around televisions, their faces illuminated by breaking news alerts and the glow of cell phone screens. The atmosphere is tense, as families, friends, and strangers alike try to make sense of the chaos unfolding before their eyes. Just hours ago, a massive Israeli strike targeted more than 100 of Iran's nuclear and missile sites, unleashing a wave of destruction that has sent shockwaves through the international community. The world watched in disbelief as explosions lit up the night sky, and satellite images revealed the scale of devastation across Iran's strategic facilities. The attack claimed the lives of several top Iranian military officials, including key figures in Iran's defense and nuclear programs. The loss has left the Iranian leadership reeling and pushed regional tensions to a level unseen in decades, raising fears of a wider conflict that could engulf neighboring countries. In Washington, President Trump moved quickly to address the crisis. He firmly denied any U.S. involvement in the attack, but his words carried a stern warning. If Iran refuses to come to the negotiating table, the consequences could be even more severe. The world listened closely, aware that every statement could tip the balance further. Meanwhile, Russia condemned Israel's actions in the strongest terms, calling the strike a blatant violation of international law and warning of unpredictable repercussions. Moscow's response has added another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation, as global powers take sides and issue threats of their own. Israel's prime minister, standing before a sea of reporters, remained resolute. He declared that Israel would not back down until Iran's nuclear ambitions were completely dismantled, vowing to take whatever steps are necessary to ensure his nation's security, no matter the cost. In Tehran, Iran's new president, Masoud Pezeshkian, addressed a defiant crowd. He promised that Iran would not yield to foreign pressure or intimidation, and that the nation would stand united in the face of aggression, determined to defend its sovereignty at any price. Iran's government announced that uranium enrichment would not only continue but accelerate, signaling a dangerous escalation. Scientists and security forces have been placed on high alert as the world wonders how far each side is willing to go. The United Nations has called an emergency session, and world leaders are scrambling to respond, holding urgent phone calls and tense meetings in hopes of preventing the crisis from spiraling out of control. The fear of a global conflict has never felt more real. Across continents, families sit glued to their screens, worried for their loved ones and uncertain about what the future holds. Streets in major cities are eerily quiet as people brace themselves for the possibility of war and the shattering of the fragile balance of power. The fear is real. This regional clash now threatens to spiral into a global catastrophe, with the world's deadliest weapons hanging in the balance. As leaders weigh their next moves, the fate of millions hangs in uncertainty, and the world holds its breath. Iran may not possess nuclear weapons of its own, but its position in the global power structure is far from isolated. The country sits at the heart of a complex web of alliances and rivalries, where the threat of nuclear conflict is never far from the surface. While Iran itself remains officially non-nuclear, its most powerful allies do have these devastating weapons at their disposal, and that's precisely what makes the current crisis so volatile and unpredictable. Russia, for example, commands the world's largest and most formidable nuclear arsenal, a legacy of decades of military buildup and strategic planning. Meanwhile, China is rapidly expanding its own nuclear capabilities, investing heavily in new technology, and forging closer ties with Tehran. Together, these nations form a powerful bloc, one that could directly challenge the United States and its Western allies if tensions continue to rise or if open conflict erupts. Russia alone holds over 5,500 nuclear warheads, a force capable of unimaginable destruction. The United States, for its part, maintains a stockpile of more than 5,000 warheads, ensuring a balance of terror that has defined global politics for generations. China's arsenal, though smaller, is growing at an unprecedented rate, signaling a new era of nuclear competition. These alliances and rivalries mean that what might begin as a regional conflict could quickly spiral into a global catastrophe, where a single miscalculation or misunderstanding could trigger a nuclear exchange with devastating consequences. Any direct attack on Iran risks drawing in Russia or China, setting off a chain reaction that could engulf the world's major powers in war. The world now stands on a knife's edge, where every decision is fraught with peril, and one wrong move could mean the difference between peace and nuclear war. The dominoes are lined up, each one representing a nation, an alliance, or a fragile peace, and America is squarely in the crosshairs, facing threats from multiple directions. In this high-stakes game of nuclear brinkmanship, the stakes have never been higher, and the world watches, holding its breath. As tensions rise and uncertainty grips the nation, a sense of unease settles over city streets and living rooms alike. People gather around televisions, their faces illuminated by the flicker of breaking news, while others scroll anxiously through their phones, searching for answers in a world that suddenly feels more fragile than ever. In the midst of this anxiety, a chilling map from 2015 has resurfaced and gone viral, spreading rapidly across social media and news outlets. The map, stark and unflinching, depicts what a nuclear attack on the United States could look like in terrifying detail. Created using official FEMA data, the map visualizes thousands of warheads targeting America's cities, military bases, and critical infrastructure. It's not just a theoretical exercise, it's a sobering visualization of the unimaginable, grounded in real government assessments and strategic calculations. The projections are staggering. Up to 250 million Americans dead, 3/4 of the population, wiped out in a matter of hours. The sheer scale of devastation is almost impossible to comprehend, leaving entire cities empty and a nation in mourning. Every major city, from the bustling streets of New York to the sprawling neighborhoods of Los Angeles, is marked for destruction. No region is spared. The map's red and yellow zones stretch from coast to coast, a grim reminder of the vulnerability of even the most iconic American skylines. For many, the map transforms the abstract fear of nuclear war into something immediate and personal. Families gather around kitchen tables, tracing the blast zones and wondering what would happen to their own neighborhoods, their schools, their loved ones. The devastation goes beyond the loss of life. The map hints at the collapse of the economy, the breakdown of government, and the unraveling of society itself. Empty offices, shuttered stores, and silent streets paint a picture of a world forever changed. For many Americans, this viral map is a wake-up call, a stark reminder that nuclear war isn't just a relic of the Cold War or a distant nightmare. It's a real present danger that could upend life as we know it in an instant. The red and yellow blast zones on the map aren't just lines. They represent homes, playgrounds, and entire communities erased in moments. Each mark is a story, a life, a future lost to the unthinkable. The map's resurgence has forced Americans to confront a threat they hoped was long gone, sparking urgent conversations in homes, schools, and public spaces across the country. The conversation about nuclear war is no longer theoretical. It's immediate, it's urgent, and it demands our attention now more than ever. The disaster map reveals a grim strategy cripple America's ability to fight back by targeting its biggest cities and military sites. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, these economic powerhouses would be among the first to fall. Washington, D.C. would be hit to decapitate political and military leadership. The Pentagon and other key government buildings would be destroyed, creating chaos and a power vacuum. Over 100 military facilities, including ICBM silos in the Midwest and NORAD in Colorado, would be prime targets. Major naval bases and critical infrastructure, power plants, oil refineries, transportation hubs, would be obliterated. States like Texas and California, with dense infrastructure, would suffer catastrophic losses. The goal ensure that even survivors face a nation without power, food, or fuel. The attack plan is total, leaving no region truly safe. America's foundations would be shattered in hours. Surviving the initial blast is just the beginning. Radioactive fallout is the next invisible killer. Fallout drifts for hundreds of miles, blanketing vast regions in toxic dust. The East Coast, California, and the Midwest would become uninhabitable wastelands. Survivors would need to shelter for weeks or months, cut off from the world, to avoid lethal radiation. Even after the danger fades, fallout poisons soil, water, and food, making recovery impossible. Agriculture would collapse, leading to famine and disease. Cancer rates and genetic defects would soar for generations. Fallout ensures the war's effects linger long after the bombs stop falling. For those who escape the blast, the struggle for survival is just beginning. Nuclear war is a poison that keeps on killing. Scientists warn of an even greater threat: nuclear winter. Firestorms from burning cities would send smoke and soot into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight for years. Global temperatures could drop by 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, wiping out growing seasons. Crops would fail, ecosystems would collapse, and famine would spread worldwide. Survivors would face a frozen, sunless world, unrecognizable and hostile. Even nations untouched by bombs would suffer the consequences. The message is clear: in nuclear war there are no winners, only global devastation. The decision to use these weapons threatens all of humanity. Nuclear winter is the ultimate act of self-destruction. The planet itself would become the casualty. The horror of nuclear war is personal. Radiation sickness is a slow, agonizing death. High doses kill within hours, destroying the nervous system. Lower but still fatal doses cause nausea, vomiting, and internal bleeding, leading to death in days or weeks. Even survivors face a lifetime of illness-weakened immune systems, uncontrolled bleeding, and severe burns. Long-term effects include cancer, sterility, cataracts, and genetic mutations passed to future generations. Radiation breaks the body down from the inside out. The suffering doesn't end with the blast, it haunts survivors for life. The true cost of nuclear war is measured in endless pain and loss. The legacy is not just death, but generations of suffering. Nuclear weapons leave scars that never heal. Some hope remote areas might be safe, but experts warn nowhere is truly safe from fallout. Winds can carry radioactive dust across the continent, poisoning even the most isolated places. Survivors in rural zones may escape the blast, only to find their land and water contaminated. Even without fallout, societal collapse would bring starvation, disease, and chaos. Supply chains would break, leaving shelves empty and medicine scarce. The global effects of nuclear winter would make growing food impossible anywhere. The fantasy of riding out the apocalypse in a remote cabin is just that, a fantasy. A nuclear war would make long-term survival nearly impossible for anyone, anywhere. The planet would become a hostile wasteland. The fear gripping the nation is real. Nuclear war feels closer than it has in a generation. With over 10,000 warheads worldwide, a regional conflict could become a global catastrophe in moments. That's why diplomacy is more critical than ever. Urgent negotiations are underway, with the fate of millions hanging in the balance. Treaties and arms control exist for this reason, to prevent the unthinkable. The current crisis is a test of whether the world can step back from the brink. The chilling maps and statistics are a warning, not a prophecy. Preventing nuclear war is humanity's most urgent task.